Welcome back, guys. So we just wrapped up the low poly and the UVs inside of Blender, and we dynameshed the high poly or remeshed inside of Blender is what they call it. And now we're ready to start baking the high poly detail onto the low poly model. And we opened up Substance Painter and we're greeted with this opener screen, so we can hit close and we can hit Control N on the keyboard to pull up a new document. And if you don't want to do it that way, you could always go up to the top left and go to File, New, and you also see the hotkey there. And we're not going to touch anything on here except for Select, and we're going to go to where we stored our low poly inside of the low poly folder. And right now, currently, there should only be one model in there, and that's the wall panel 1_low. So we're going to select that, hit Open, and ensure the auto unwrap is unchecked, because we did an unwrap and did the UVs inside of Blender already, so we don't need to let Substance Painter do it for us. So we'll hit OK, and quickly you'll see our model is now here in the scene. And if you want to see the UVs as well as a split screen, you can hit F1 on the keyboard or hit F2 to close that out. So whatever one you prefer is fine with me. So to rotate around the viewport inside of Substance Painter, you want to hold Alt and left mouse click hold, and you can move your mouse to the right or to the left to rotate. To pan is Alt and middle mouse button. To zoom in and zoom out is Alt, right mouse button, click and hold. And you can move your mouse up and down to zoom in and zoom out. And to frame it, it's F. So if you pan it to the right and you lose yourself, you can hit F to frame it into the center. And yeah. And you can also rotate the light by holding Shift and right mouse button. And you can slide it left or right to a better position, or rotate the HDRI, which is lighting this. So let's start baking some of that detail here. And really quick, I want to show you guys how to do that by going to the right. So in the layers, this is where we store all our materials. And texture set settings is where we go to start baking, and we want to bake that high poly detail now. So we're going to scroll down till we see bake mesh maps. We're going to select that. And the output size, I want to output either 2K or 4K. Depending on the specs on your PC, you might not want to run 4K. You might want to do something like 2K or 1K. So I'll do 4096 because my computer can handle it. But if yours can't, you can do 2048, which is 2K. And right here where it says high definition meshes, we can select this folder and go to our high poly, which is wall panel 1_high, and it will be in a separate folder. So we'll just go back up to the high poly and we'll select wall panel 1 high, hit open. And we can change the frontal distance and the rear distance if we need to, and we'll just change it to something like 0.024 should be fine for both. And where it says anti-aliasing, we could put it on 8x8 or 4x4. And that's really it's really how much detail you can see depending on the distance you are away from it. If that makes any sense. So the farther you're away, you won't see so much quality, but the closer you are, you'll see more quality. And where it says match, right now we'll leave it on always, but typically if you're working with a more complicated piece that has more than one object to it, you want to go to by mesh name, and that's why we had the underscore suffix to match high and the underscore suffix to match low, so we could match these up. But since we're doing one at a time, it doesn't matter if we have always on. And that's all we're gonna check, and we'll just hit bake mesh maps, and quickly you'll start to see the detail will start to bake onto this low poly. And I'll just slide this to the right so you can see it as it happens, because these were just plain faces with no details on them. So here in a second you'll see all the details start to take place. Alright guys, now that that has completed, you can see everything came out nice. We have the detail that we were looking for, and this is one face, but it has that detail as if it's a high poly. So if you go to polyfill really quick, you can see the wireframe. So we have 3 faces versus 8,280. So this will run perfectly instead of a game engine, and this is exactly what we want to do. And that's really the whole method behind the whole process, is take a really dense high poly mesh and take that detail and bring it into a low poly model. And really quick, I'll show you the difference, how this would have looked if we didn't have Dynamesh, the high poly. So on the side-by-side comparison, at first glance, these two look virtually identical. But once you add a material, you'll quickly notice that the one on the left that doesn't have Dynamesh or remesh, that there's some artifacting and smoothing issues going on towards the edges. And this is namely due to the high triangulation count of the high poly, so that's why we Dynamesh.